Welcome back to the Classic Guitar Rock Podcast. We're your hosts, Jeremy and Jeff. Hi, Jeff.
Hello.
And I was just talking to Jeff, and we took a week off last week, so this is a 2-week break. So, just been crazy busy. I've had a lot of stuff at work, but I was telling Jeff that this album, and this is just coming right out of the gate, spoiler alert. This is one of my all-time favorite albums. We're talking about ZZ Top's Tres Hombres today. So I'm super excited. And this is one of, the other albums we've done, Jeff. I should save all this and talk about it later, but I'll just say this. All the other albums we've done, I think for both of us, is they were albums that we weren't super familiar with. And so we had to go and listen and do our homework. This album, and this is why I wanted to do it, this is one that is so ingrained in my head since about 1983 when I bought this album. I know every nuance of every track on this album. So I'm really looking forward to talking about this.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear these nuances you speak of.
And I know that you play some ZZ Top in your set list with your band.
Yes.
How many tunes of theirs do you play off the top of your head?
Well, kind of 2.
Okay.
But we've played around, of course, with a few others. But Neighbor Neighbor is the one that we've been doing.
Yeah. From the first album.
From the first album, just entitled the first
ZZ Top album. Yeah. Clever. Those guys are clever. Yeah.
Well, that's like if you're gonna release an album as a band, just call it the first album.
Yeah, I like the group Big Star. Kind of not a huge commercial band, but they're kind of one of these critical darling bands. Maybe we'll talk about Big Star. Their first album they called Number One Record, which I thought that was pretty clever too.
That is clever. The other tune we do was Nationwide.
Love that song.
Yeah,
that's a great one.
His voice on that's pretty fun.
And we're already getting into it. I won't say what I'm about to say, but to that point, we'll come back to that. Before we get into this album, Tres Hombres from ZZ Top, we're gonna do something a little new, Jeff. And I just threw this out to Jeff. This is going to be our invitation to each other is, if we come across any new artists that we think classic rock fans would dig, we can introduce it here. We'll share it here. But I got to tell you, I saw it's again Frontier Records. It's like I'm a shill for Frontier Records. I've mentioned Frontier Records.
I think they should be the sponsor.
Let's see what we can do. Frontier Records has a new record out by a group called Garish and the Chronicles, and they are from India. Okay, so when I saw this band from India, of course, what am I thinking? I have stereotypes. I'm assuming I'm going to hear sitar and all this stuff, and I put on this album. Their new album is called, Rock the Highway. And dude, this is like straight from 1987, 1988. You hear some Night Ranger, you hear some Motley Crue. I think I'm more of an 80s hair metal guy than you are. But this is quality butt rock. I mean, it's good stuff. I mean, the vocals are phenomenal. This guy is incredible. The guitars, I mean, it literally sounds like 1987, 1988. And I had never heard of these guys. And it's just ridiculous how fun this album is. And that's nice. What I'll say. It's kind of like the Tokyo Motor Fist. But I think these guys maybe even better, in terms of it's a little heavier. Some of it kind of reminded me of the Motley Crue, Kickstart My Heart era.
Yeah.
But of course, this guy's vocally kicks the crap out of Vince Neil. I mean, it's no comparison. It's really good. So
Nice.
I would just say check out Girish and the Chronicles out of India, number one with a bullet. Yeah, on the 80s rock scene. It's really good. You'll enjoy it. So
And now they have this cool little GATC. GATC is their,
oh
their,
yeah.
whatever acronym. Is that the right word?
Yeah. Get GATC, Girish and the Chronicles. Yeah, I was noticing
GATC.
that GATC everywhere. Yeah, but they're really good, man. They are super awesome.
Cool.
And doggone it, people from work are trying to email me. That's why you keep hearing all these dings and dongs, but I'm ignoring them. So just ignore those. So anyways, we will try and share with you new artists that we find that might be a good fit for fans of classic rock.
Okay. Sounds good. I'm gonna check these guys out tonight.
Sweet. I'm trying to turn off. Do you know how to turn off notifications in Microsoft Teams? Let's see here.
I don't use it, but I'm guessing it's got to be a preference on the preferences.
Yeah,
huh?
it just pisses me off. Okay, we can edit.
So this album, it looks like it says country Denmark. Is that weird?
For Girish and the interesting.
I mean, they might be Indian, but like,
yeah,
maybe they produced it in Denmark.
It could be.
Made it.
I'll have to. I just saw. You don't get a lot of chances to listen to, hard rock bands from India. So I wanted to check it out, and I was like, wow, this is really good. This is really good. I'm a big fan of Bollywood action movies too. Have you ever seen any of those? They're
just on YouTube.
Yeah, they're unbelievable. It's great.
It's an experience.
And so here's the thing. You know how over the top those Bollywood action scenes are? Okay?
Yeah. That's
what this album's like. I mean, it's like, it's good. It's a fun album. Let me just say that. It's a fun album. It's all the musicianship is great, but it literally sounds like it came straight from 1988. It's like when you'd go to Cuba in the 80s, all the cars they drove were like from the late 50s, right? Mm-hmm. And I could be wrong. I think they even could manufacture cars, but they manufactured models from like the late 50s because that's what they were tooled up for and everything. So anyways, there's
Love
that.
It.
So I keep saying we're going to start talking about ZZ Top. I got one other thing to say here. First of all, you can email us, classicguitarrock@mail.com. Please send your recommendations for albums you'd like us to talk about. But the other thing I wanted to mention is if you would like to be a sponsor, reach out to us. You would be shocked and stunned at how affordable, at how little you could spend and be a sponsor on this podcast. Totally. I mean, and I'm not bragging, but we're up to over 8,000, downloads in the month and a half we've been doing this. So we've got some audience out there. And if you would like to be a sponsor, we would love to hear from you. So, shoot.
Yes, we would.
And you would be shocked and amazed at how affordably you could be a sponsor and have us talk about you on the podcast. And of course, there's still Patreon. If you want to be a patron of the show, go to patreon.com, and that's available too if you'd like to support the podcast that way.
Yeah, you want to send me any products, nutritional or something, I'll take it and give you my my feelings, my thoughts.
That's a great idea.
My reviews.
That's a great idea. You can send us, we'll review products, whatever, man. We can sample your
guitars, amps, pedals,
strings. Yes. And we could talk about this. That'd be great. Yeah. So what are we saying? We're saying we're for sale. Yeah, we're for sale. Totally.
If Paul Reed Smith wants to send me a 594,
yeah, totally,
beautiful metallic gold,
we'll try out the new Marshalls. Whatever you got. But seriously, if you are interested in being a sponsor and would like to do so for a very affordable rate, then reach out to us, classicguitarrock@mail.com. Now, enough yakking, less yakking, more tracking. I worked at a radio station where we less, or what was, yeah, it was time to stop yakking and start tracking. Yeah, it was pretty good. Anyways,
did you actually do the voice for that?
no, I didn't. No, they hired some big guy, you know.
You probably could have done it.
Anyways, when we come back, Jeff, we're going to talk about this phenomenal album from 1973. We're talking ZZ Top's Tres Hombres. Okay. All right.
You know what else is over the top that I love? It's not an album or a band, but it's a movie.
What's that?
Sharknado.
Sharknado's awesome. And there's like 4 or 5 now, aren't there? I've seen the first one. I think I might have seen like Sharknado 3.
It's so unbelievable.
Oh, it's ridiculous. And
so
then
ridiculous.
The one that, so my son and I are getting into this Godzilla. He's 12 and he's just really into Godzilla lately, you know? And so we've been going back watching the old cheesy Japanese Toho from the 60s, you know? But then we saw this movie on Amazon. We haven't watched it, but we're thinking it's called Croczilla, which looks really a lot like Sharknado, you know, the same type deal. So we might be checking that out.
I think I've seen previews for that. Okay. Crocodiles flying through the sky.
Okay, so all right, welcome back to the Classic Guitar Rock podcast. And during the break, Jeff and I were talking about a cinematic masterpiece that he highly recommends to everyone. What show was that you were recommending? Sharknado, yes. Have you watched the whole trilogy, by the way? I mean, there are like 4 or 5 Sharknados now, I think.
I think I might have seen the second one, but that's it. I stopped after that.
Too much.
If anybody's interested in chainsaws and sharks flying through the air, this is a perfect movie for you.
I mean, what's not to like about that?
I think that's what they were thinking.
I know. It's ridiculous. Okay, so ZZ Top. Let's talk about ZZ Top. And before we get into the actual, you know, track by track of the album, I think it's important that we talk a little bit about ZZ Top. And of course, and I don't mean to dismiss the talents of Frank and Dusty, but Billy is really the magic of ZZ Top. Would you agree with me on that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Although any other drummer, I don't, you know, maybe it wouldn't work. Maybe it would. It's really hard to say. And okay, they've been together since 1970. Can you think of any other bands that have? I can't think of another band. Now there are bands. I mean, the Rolling Stones technically are still a band, but they've lost members. There've been people in and out, blah blah blah. But I cannot think of another band that has been together with the original folks for that long. You know, 51 plus years or 52 years.
Well, and here's the thing.
Yeah, no other band, I don't think.
Yeah,
well, at least not a rock band.
Their last album was 2012. So we're assuming they're still, I've never heard that they broke up, you know, so I'm assuming they're still a going concern. They're still touring, or they were as of a year ago, I think.
Do you know, I had tickets to ZZ Top. My family wanted to go somewhere for spring break, COVID, last year. And I said, you know, ZZ Top's playing the Venetian Hotel Casino in Vegas.
Perfect.
They have a what do you call it? A standing, you know, 3-week stint or something.
There. Yeah.
I said, I want to go there. I want to go to Vegas, have a vacation, see ZZ Top. You guys go to your spring break thing. And my wife was like, okay. So I got tickets. Good tickets. Just going by myself.
Right.
And then COVID happened. And they obviously canceled it. Yeah. So as of last year, they were certainly touring.
And I was assuming that's still the case, but I just hadn't heard. And of course, that's the situation with so many bands now, because none of them can tour. But ZZ Top is one of those bands, and they've always had this mystique about them, right? Is they've got the whole shtick, you know, they've got the even their videos. Of course, so many people were first exposed to them in the early 80s with Eliminator, right? And there's no shame in that. That's a great album, right? And that was the one that really made them a mainstream band, you know? And it's funny that it was about a year before that, for me personally, that I started to get into ZZ Top. I can remember as like a 7th grader hearing when Deguelo came out, they actually had released I Thank You as the first single off that album. And I can remember hearing that. And so in the back of my mind, I had, you know, heard of this band ZZ Top, and I was kind of familiar with them. And then it was later in 80, 81, my older brother was playing in a band, and they played Waiting for the Bus, and they played Cheap Sunglasses. And so that was another intro to ZZ Top. And I can remember my brother in about 82 bought Deguelo. And I, by the way, have stolen all of my brother's records over the years. I don't think he even realizes that I have pretty much all the records he ever bought. But so Deguelo was the one he brought home first. And then I, shortly after that, bought Tres Hombres. And then it was just a few months later that Eliminator came out. And then, you know, then everyone knew about ZZ Top. But they've always had this kind of crazy, you know, tall tale Texas image, which is fun, right? And their songs, a lot of funny songs, a lot of double entendres, you know, that's just kind of their shtick. And I did hear one interesting thing. So they had the big worldwide Texas tour.
Yes.
In like 77. And that was the tour where they had like live cattle and chickens on stage.
Yes.
That's great. I mean,
I heard they had vultures.
Vultures. Yeah,
they had rattlesnakes.
Oh, it was, and back then they were cowboys. Okay. They'd wear the gaudy rhinestone suits like you'd see Porter Wagner wear, and big cowboy hats. And,
yeah, I think they became famous in Texas.
Oh, right?
Yeah, big time before obviously the mainstream.
Yeah.
But you were listening to them earlier you were listening to the earlier stuff, at least, you know, before me. I went right from puberty to heavy metal, I think, or hair metal.
Yeah.
And Eliminator was obviously the first thing as well for me because of MTV, which is I always say, but you know.
And then you go backwards, right? And I think that was the case with a lot of folks.
Yeah.
That went backwards, but they're just funny. But here was the thing: after the worldwide Texas tour, and that was the how would you say it? Tejas. It's like the Tejas. After the Tejas album, which was not a really successful album, but the tour was very successful. So they're out touring that, promoting that album with the worldwide Texas tour. And then they plan to take like 3 months off or something. The plan was 3 months. Well, 3 months turned into like 2 years. Mm-hmm. So I think Billy Gibbons had gone to Europe, and Frank had gone to Jamaica, and Dusty Hill had gone to Mexico. And so they just went their separate ways because they had been touring nonstop for like 7 years. And then when they got back together, unbeknownst to each other, Billy and Frank both had grown the long beards. So they did that independently, not knowing that the other one was growing a long beard.
For real?
Yeah. Yeah. So when they get together after 2 years, they both have long beards.
Dusty.
That's kind of funny. And Frank Beard, of course, is the only member that doesn't have a beard. Okay. Sometimes he does, but usually he just got a mustache. Now I think he might have a goatee. He got new teeth, by the way. I don't know if you guys have noticed that in recent interviews. Oh, he got brand new teeth. He looks good. But he was the only one that didn't have a beard. So I thought, well, it was funny. And at one point, at the height of their popularity, so this is Eliminator to, you know, Afterburner phase, 84, 85, around there, Gillette was offering them, like, you know, as a publicity thing, they were going to pay him like $1 million to shave off their beards as part of an ad campaign or something. I know.
I was just listening to the drummer of the Black Crowes, Steve Gorman, I believe. Tell a story when they got kicked off the ZZ Top tour when Black Crowes were just, you know, on their ascent.
Yeah.
It was like sponsored by Miller Lite, and
Mhm.
and Chris Robinson was, basically he got in trouble with something he didn't really intentionally say, and then he reacted in a way where basically it was like them against corporate sponsorship. So it's
Exactly.
funny that you're mentioning this story about
Yeah.
Gillette asking them to shave their beards.
Hey, and let's just say ZZ Top, they're capitalists. Nothing wrong with that. But yeah,
Well,
I've read the story about the Black Crowes incident on
I'm
that.
sure we're going to get into it, but somehow they have remained cool,
Yeah.
even though they're spinning their guitars, with white fur, and they're got sponsors. I think it's just the music speaks for itself.
I think the
That's all I
music
could say.
and it's a whole vibe of, it's a carefully crafted persona, right? Is they're almost like cartoon characters. I mean, think about their videos, all those videos on MTV where it's the same three cool guys, that just come from out of nowhere in a hot rod, and that hot rod is actually Billy Gibbons' coupe. They all come out of nowhere. They're just kind of these characters that observe the various stories happening in the videos, and they have a way I think of like Texas Tall Tales. That's really what a lot of these songs are. And when we talk about the songs on this album, we'll get into that. But the history of the band is unique because Dusty and Frank were from Dallas. So they were in Dallas in a couple different bands. I think
A blues band or something.
blues bands. American Blues was the band that they were in, and they had each been in bands previous to that around Texas, but they were in this group American Blues, and it was actually Frank that teamed up with Billy first, and they had another guy who was the bass player. In fact, when I saw this guy's name, it was Lanier Gregg or something. He was the original bass player. And I remember seeing things online years ago by this Lanier Gregg guy who claimed he was the originator of ZZ Top. And I think it's just an old guy. He died in 2014, but I think at the time it was just a guy trying to get credit for something, that he was very briefly the bass player with Billy Gibbons. But
was that in Moving Sidewalks?
No, that was in
Something else.
It was when, I don't know if they were calling themselves ZZ Top, but Billy and Frank had gotten together, were forming this new band, and this Lanier Gregg guy was the bass player. I don't know if they were calling themselves ZZ Top, but it was definitely after the Moving Sidewalks. And anyways, when he left, Frank, who had been playing with Dusty in American Blues, said, "Hey, come and join me and Billy." And he did. And that was 1969 or 70. They played their first gig in an American Legion hall in 1970 is what I saw. And then, by when was the first album? 71. Yeah, I think ZZ Top's first album was 71. And the rest is history,
And should we mention the name, where they got the idea for the name?
Yes.
You know about that?
I don't know. Tell us.
According to legend.
and that's the thing about ZZ Top. Everything is wrapped in legend and tall tales, and so you never quite know what to believe.
And it's usually wrapped around food and drink and rattlesnakes.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Dusty, bowls of.
Yeah.
Apparently, one of Billy's heroes is BB King, and this other guy, ZZ
Hill. Yeah, ZZ Hill.
So they were going to call themselves ZZ King, and they thought that was kind of weird. Well, King is kind of on top, of the hierarchy, right, of power. So they said ZZ Top.
ZZ
Top.
Stuck.
So what a cool,
that works.
Right from the beginning they had it,
And I heard another story. I heard the BB ZZ thing before, but then another story that I've heard is that they got the top from the name of a cigarette paper, was something called Top something. Oh. So that's where they got the top from. So that's a slightly different story. And here's the thing about ZZ Top is Billy Gibbons is like Rick Nielsen of Cheap Trick. He'll just lie. Okay. So they'll ask him in an interview something and he'll tell you a story. And in another interview, he'll tell a completely different story. So just right? To kind of promote the mystique. I don't mean lying in a, a bad way, but just kind of to promote the whole mystique. You might hear the story different every single time. Here's the thing about Billy, by the way. Have you ever listened to that radio show Coast to Coast AM that's on late at night where they talk about UFOs and time travel and Bigfoot and stuff?
I don't think so.
So, and that show kind of sucks now, but it used to be really good. And now all they talk about is like herbal supplements. So it sucks, but it used to be good. I mean, it was UFO, it was Bigfoot, it was ghosts. It was cool. And I heard Billy Gibbons on the show one night. And Billy Gibbons, first of all, his voice is really low. He talks really low, but he is super smart.
Yeah.
I mean, very intelligent. And when he talks, he's like, he just uses these big words and he's like, wow, this guy's really smart. But I don't remember where I was going with this point. My point is that he's a storyteller, right? He's a conversationalist. He's a humorist. And I think a lot of that bleeds in to what they do. So
yeah, absolutely. And I had no idea that they opened up, not ZZ, but Billy's other band for Hendrix.
Yes, the Moving Sidewalks.
Psychedelic Texas band.
Yeah, psychedelic Texas band. And at one point, you might have the quote here. Jimi Hendrix said that Billy Gibbons was the best. I don't remember the exact words, but he called him the best new guitar player on the scene or something.
Yeah. Like holy moly, right?
Yeah. I mean, this is Hendrix. And it's funny if you go back, what's fun is go on Spotify and go back and listen to the Moving Sidewalks. You can totally tell it's Billy singing, right? But the music is, it's psychedelic. I mean,
that organ.
Yeah, a lot of organ, but it's pretty cool. Pretty cool. And if you see
it is pretty cool.
ZZ Top live in Texas, they play ZZ Top plays Voodoo Child. It's pretty cool. I mean, they do a Hendrix cover on that. It's
nice.
Cool. So they were, I don't want to say they were like best friends, but they opened a couple times with Hendrix and Billy and Jimmy knew each other and stuff. So it's pretty cool. I think I think if I'm remembering right, Billy Gibbons' dad was a preacher, I think. Am I remembering that right? Maybe I'm getting confused.
I don't know, but it's the Reverend Billy Gibbons.
Maybe
that has something to do with it.
Reverend Willie G. Yeah. So, and you notice on this album, by the way, and this is Texas, right? These guys grew up in Texas. So that's the Bible Belt, right? So this album has, Have You Heard? Mm-hmm. That's a gospel song. Mm-hmm. That's a full-on gospel song. So it makes sense. But, Billy I think was exposed to music a lot as a kid, as was Billy. I've seen interviews with Billy where it said he was really into blues and loved to listen to blues albums. And they both, in fact, later on, I think it's on the El Loco album. I heard it on the X. That song, I heard it on the X. That's about the radio station. Now, guys, what would happen back in the 50s and 60s is in the US, AM stations are capped at 50,000 watts. Okay. There's what they call clear channel stations, not the network clear channel. That's where Clear Channel got their name. No, it's not the network. That's where Clear Channel got their name though. What the original, I'm drawing on my background in broadcasting. Okay. The original, what they call clear channel AM stations, and there were only a handful of them in the US. KOA in Denver is a clear channel station, 50,000 watt blowtorch, right? There was KGO in San Francisco. There was, I think, WKY in Oklahoma, but across the country, there were a handful of what they called the clear channel 50,000 watt AM stations. Now, a 50,000 watt AM station has a killer signal at night. So for instance, my folks who grew up in Western Montana at night would hear music from Oklahoma City, which is 1,500 miles away.
Wow. Right. Yeah.
So the point I'm getting at is you could go south of the Rio Grande and put a radio station up. And in Mexico, you could go 100,000 watts. AM, not FM. This is AM, which is, if you get in the whole technology, the AM signals traveled 100,000 watt radio station. Guys in Vietnam, okay, soldiers in Vietnam at night could pick up music from these stations in Mexico. Okay.
Wow.
That's how big the signal was. So when you hear the song, I Heard It on the X, they're talking about this radio station, this pirate radio station that was just south of the border, broadcasting to the US, right? And the point is, this station would play country, they'd play blues, they'd play rock, they played every kind of music. And that's what those guys kind of grew up hearing, you know. And that was the good old days before, you know, iHeart. Clear Channel became iHeart, and now, you know, radio kind of sucks. But in that day, you had some of these pioneers, and that's what they grew up listening. They'd hear gospel songs, and they'd hear psychedelic songs and country songs, all on this same station, you know. And
I heard that the commercials on these stations were just what you would expect, like, you know, like driving down some dusty road in Mexico, and they're selling like some baby Jesus, or they're selling some other weird thing, like not weird like to be, you know, put down, but just something you wouldn't find
here. That's awesome.
And you wouldn't, and that, you know, to advertise on the radio stations, they hear those things. I thought that was funny.
And so here's in Oklahoma, I grew up in Oklahoma, and at late at night, same thing. I'd listen to WLS from Chicago, right? Big AM, WLS, another big Clear Channel station. There were only, I don't know, maybe 50 in the whole country, probably not that many, 30 in the whole US. I don't remember, but, and that was the thing. They were limited at 50,000 watts, where you could go just south of the border and go 100,000 and literally broadcast to the whole world at night. You know, so
is the issue that if everyone had a 50,000 watt channel, that they'd bump into each other?
Yeah, that's the whole thing. So if you'd get so we had one here, we still have one here in Spokane, 1510 KGA it's the frequency. I don't even know what their format is now, but yeah, that was the whole point. Is if there's one 1510 over here, then you couldn't have another one. I don't know if that meant in the whole country, or it had to be clear on the other side of the country. But technologically speaking, AM and FM are a lot different. And sometimes on an FM, you'd get what they call a skip. So I worked at a radio station. We were 98.1 FM. And I got a call from a guy. So this is Oklahoma. I get a call from a guy in Mississippi one morning. And he says, "Hey, I just wanted to give you a call. We have a local station here at 98.1, and they're off the air. And I could hear you clear down here and this was 100,000 watt FM, which is as big as you can get for an FM, but those are more common. There's lots of 100,000 watt FMs, but even with FM, FM is based on line of sight, right? You have to have a direct line of sight. So I guess Oklahoma was flat enough or whatever that he was actually picking up, because there wasn't a closer signal from 98.1. He was picking me up clear up in Oklahoma, and he's way down in Mississippi hearing us. And it was only for like half an hour. Then the closer station came back up. And sorry, I didn't mean to digress into that whole nerdy conversation about AM and FM signals, but it's interesting the way that works out. So
love it all, man. You know?
Okay.
Audio, music is all hertz, right? Frequencies.
And there's something magical. It's the same way with vinyl, Jeff. There's something magical about, you put a record on a turntable and you hear the little crackle, right? You hear a song on the radio and it sounds better than listening on a CD, right? I mean, technically sound quality, it doesn't, but you hear the little crackle and the static. I don't know. There's just something about that electricity. So that's what sucked me into radio, because I grew up as a kid listening to these FM AM stations late at night. And I just thought it would be really cool to get into that. So anyways, let's talk about Tres Hombres, man. And I told you, I don't mean to be a spoiler here, but this is one of my top 5 albums of all time. So I'm just going to throw that there out of the gate. I think it's a brilliant album, and everyone should own it. And if this is not one of your favorite albums, you're crazy. I'll just so
every song too.
Every
right?
song is
every song.
I mean, remember last week the Humble Pie, we're rating them with guitar picks. We had some that we gave 4 guitar picks. I think a couple might have got 5. Some got 2 guitar, And again, spoiler alert, but I think all but maybe one song on this album, I would give 5 guitar picks across the board. And the one that I don't give 5, I'd probably give 4. So
4.5.
4.5. It's that solid an album. So really quick, before we even start to break down the tracks, this was recorded released July 26th of 1973. It was recorded at Ardent Studios. We could do a whole show just on Ardent Studios. They've had like 80 platinum albums that were recorded there. And this Terry Manning guy, who was, I think, responsible for the mix. You see Terry Manning's name everywhere, every genre. This is a guy that has been affiliated with, you could probably just about any band you name it. I mean, AC/DC, I think it's ridiculous. He's on many records.
I think I've read he was mixing, or he mixed Led Zeppelin 3.
Oh, yeah.
And Billy at that time was a fan, I guess, of that album. So, yes.
Yeah, and he's if you see Terry Manning, I mean, this guy is record production royalty, and he's involved in Ardent Studios. So that's something we could talk about in a later show, but just understand that this album, Bill Ham is the producer, and Bill Ham had a long relationship with ZZ Top. He's from Texas himself, and just a long relationship with him. But the album itself, it's just that green album cover, and the pictures are just kind of these random pictures. I always thought it was kind of weird. I mean, you got a picture on the left, which is Dusty, and it's just him from behind. They're kind of washed out pictures. And then in the middle, it looks like Billy is climbing a telephone pole or something. I don't know what that is. And then you got this picture of Frank, who's just sitting up on top of this rock archway, it looks like. But the best part of this album cover is the gatefold. You open it up, and it's got this delicious, messy looking dinner, several plates at a Mexican restaurant. I mean, there's cheese spread all over there's
Leo's was the restaurant.
Oh, that's right. Leo's
for like $2.99, I think. That's what you get.
It looks so good. I mean, I used to just sit with that album and just look at that a lot of people would look at the girl. There's a picture of a girl there on the table, just not me. I'm looking at the enchiladas, dude. Yeah, that's what it just looked really good. But yeah, it's just a good album. And it's an appropriate gatefold, because I don't know, it just kind of encapsulates what ZZ Top sounds like. It's a good time. And as
delicious and gritty.
Delicious. Yes, there, I like it. Yeah. Beefy. Yes, it's good. And as I think about it, there's lots of references to food across their career. Their later album has that song Poke Chop Sandwich. Okay, and there's TV dinners. There's Burger Man. I'm just thinking off the top of my head, all the songs they have that are about food, and it's just funny. So let's just jump into this. Let's jump into this. One tall tale I've heard. Again, this is coming from Billy Gibbons, so can you believe it? Is it true or whatever? I've heard everything from the fact that he doesn't use regular guitar picks, that he uses a Mexican peso that's been filed down, so a metal pick. I don't know if that's true. Right?
I've heard the same things. I found a quote actually from somebody, Kevin Drum, in an interview with Pitchfork.
Let's hear it.
Billy Gibbons' guitar sound isn't the way it is because he uses a quarter as a pick or anything as simple as that. It's because he's in touch with a different sector of the cosmos that we know nothing about. And I thought, yes.
Yeah, that makes sense. That explains why they just appear from out of thin air on the
But yeah, I've heard that too. I think I've tried using a quarter before.
I've tried a penny, and I'm like, that's just
Nah.
I can't do it. And I won't say he's the first one to do it, but the pinch harmonics are very prominent on this album. And I can't remember if on the first two albums we hear that as much, but it's all over on this album, especially, Lagrange is the pinch harmonic song you think of. I've also heard, again, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard that he always recorded on little amps, like champs, like little amps, little speakers. And he said that I found that miking up a little amp would give me a bigger sound. And I don't know if that's true. I've also read that he used a lot of early old tweed Fenders. One thing that is great about this album in this time, this is 1973, man, you can almost smell the tubes burning on this album. Don't you hear that sound? It's just a super warm, you can tell. I mean, I don't think he's using fuzz pedals or anything. I think this is dime.
I think he did later on. But I think, I think you're right. I think he's known for using tweeds.
Yeah.
But then also I've heard quotes from him saying he had his 59 Les Paul Pearly Gates or whatever, and a Marshall 100 watt. So it's hard to know. And there are songs where I thought he was using a Les Paul, and it turns out he's using a Strat.
Exactly, especially on Deguelo. Deguelo has Strats all over it, but you always think of him playing a Les Paul, right?
Yeah.
And I'm assuming this album is a Les Paul through an old Fender tweed, but I don't know for sure. Again, that's part of the mystique. You don't know.
We'll get to Lagrange.
Yeah, it's great. So, okay.
I don't think it's a Les Paul.
This is going really well. Good point. Okay.
But we'll see.
And also one of the songs, I think it's Precious and Grace, where you got this really twangy slide part where I don't think that's a Les Paul either. But anyways, we'll get to that. So this is going to go way long. We've already been talking about this for.
I know.
You have anywhere to be anytime soon, Jeff?
No.
Okay.
Hey man, you know what you could do? It could be fun. Is you could possibly do an A/B thing, or part 1, part 2.
We could,
and release them like just one day apart.
That's a good idea.
To be continued and leave people kind of hanging. If you listen back and it makes sense.
I'll see what we want to do. I know I only have like another 40 minutes, so I better pick it up. Okay, so it starts with Waiting for the Bus. And that is just a gritty, awesome. The guitar sound is great. I don't know what to say. It's a great song. This is probably the first ZZ Top song I was familiar with because my brother was playing it in the band he was in. And I love it. And contrary to what I said last week about harmonicas, this has a harmonica in it. And I'm okay with it. Sounds great. But this is just a great song. Your thoughts on this song? Anything jump out at you on this song?
First, I do want to say this album was a big success for the band, right? At
Totally.
this point, they hadn't had, something I think that charted. So this was like, at that time, this was big for them.
I think it got to 8 on the top 200.
Yeah.
What I saw. Yeah. So a very successful album for them.
And you were talking about, can't remember what we were saying, but we've talked in the past about, Friday night videos before MTV and radio stations that would do 2 for Tuesday.
Right. Totally. Yeah.
And I think I've heard this song with the next one coming up back to back but I didn't really know it was ZZ Top perhaps way back because of these twofers. Right. So they would always play Waiting for the Bus into Jesus, right?
Yeah. It just goes right in.
Yeah. And you're like, oh my God. And now I listen to it and it's just perfect.
And it has to go together. If you're waiting for the bus, that stop comes. And because I've heard it happen a couple times, and then they go into another song, and I'm like very upset. Yeah. Don't do that.
Take your shuffle off.
That's right. That's right. It goes. It's meant to go together. And here's another one of those tall tales, right? So the story that gets bandied about is, oh, well, that was an accident. They weren't supposed to play right after the other. There's supposed to be a big pause between that because they're separate songs. But Terry Manning says, no, it was always designed to go right into Jesus Just Left Chicago, just like it does, And it's like, it was easy for a twofer, right? Because it didn't take any work. Here's 2 songs right here that go together. And you're right. They go together. They have to go together.
Like Zeppelin's Heartbreaker into Living, Loving, Made.
Yeah, you can't separate those two.
Perfect.
Even though they're technically 2 separate songs, they go together. And it's a crime, I think, punishable by a prison term if you don't keep them together. So that's awesome.
But I love the drums in this song.
Oh, yeah.
I love the simple it's like snare kick with that hi-hat kind of close. Yep. It's just so like, I don't know, it's minimal, but it works so well with that riff.
Well, and I
as many of their beats and rhythms do.
I actually had a published review of this album on the internet at one point. I don't know if it's still out there.
No way.
But the term I used is the solos are beefy, the lyrics are briefy. That's what is, and that's the way it is, right? It's like you get the impression with these songs that let's get through the lyrics so Billy can play his solo, and it's so good. And this has so many of the ZZ Top elements right in it. A key change, right? And that's something that Billy does a lot is you get to the solo, let's change keys, then let's change keys again. You know, he just does a lot of that. And again, we tend to heap all the praise on Billy, but he couldn't do all those things without the rhythm section that he has in Dusty and Frank. So, and this song it's just a really cool song and fun. They always this tongue in cheek, I just picture these 3 old cowboys singing about waiting for the bus, and it just makes me laugh. I mean, the whole thing is just.
Yeah, he also his delivery, just his quality of his voice.
He was like 20.
He could sing anything.
He was like
and really make it sound good.
He's like 25 at this time, and he sounds like he's 70. Back then. It's like it's crazy. But
he's got the mojo, man.
That's what it is.
He's got the mojo.
He's got mojo. That's exactly what it is.
His songwriting, his lyrics, his voice, and of course, his guitar playing.
Yeah, it's
his sound, his tone, his slide. And he plays harmonica. He's the one who was playing harmonica, right?
I did not know that.
I thought so. I feel like I read that.
You know what? Now that you mention that, I think I've seen video of him playing harmonica on something. I can't remember. But just a great song. I mean, it's got the swagger. Okay, that's the word I think of. And here's the thing about Billy, and you've probably noticed this. He's one of the most economic economical guitar players you will ever see. You can watch him and his hands, Jeff's watching me move my hands. You guys aren't seeing this, but his hands will, like, he's playing a whole solo and his hands won't move more than a fret or two the whole song. You're like, how's he doing that? I mean, he's just very economical. And even though he sounds monstrous, from what I hear, has a super light touch and uses like 7 gauge strings. I've heard he uses. Can you?
I've heard. No, I could not.
Oh, I play. Do you use 10s? I use 10s.
I use 10s to 48s.
Yeah, I use to 46. So, but I can't imagine.
I can't, especially he seems like he has big hands too, or he looks like he does. He's a tall guy.
Yeah.
So even with big hands, but you know, hey,
it works.
You could probably bend so easy without
totally
any effort.
And that's what it looks like when you watch him, is it looks so effortless. He's barely moving. You know, the chords he plays, we think about him as a lead player, but his chord playing is brilliant. And oftentimes it's 2 strings, right? It's just these very economical, a perfect example. And I know this because I had to learn it, right? But like Sharp Dressed Man and Give Me All Your Lovin', those revolve around chords that are two string chords, right? Just manipulating your fingers a little bit, with tons of gain on those songs. But it's just it's a lesson in economic playing. He does not waste any motion, any energy. And that's kind of his whole persona, right? It's like, let's be as laid back as we can be in everything that we do. And
it's almost the dichotomy of it, laid back as it could be, but yet it's badass.
Oh, it's
right. Like,
yes.
And he plays a lot of those octave kind of things, but he hits the open G with, you know, the 5th and the flatted 3rd.
Yeah.
And it sounds so.
Yeah.
Did you know David Grissom?
David Grissom. Yep.
He kind of has a similar thing when it comes to sort of picking those octaves and open G with, you know,
and grabbing things with his middle finger, you know,
the hybrid thing.
Yeah, hybrid stuff. Yeah.
Cheap sunglasses,
perfect example. And even like, well, we'll get to it, but in Lagrange, the turnaround in Lagrange, kind of the same type of thing where he's doing it's really good. So Jesus Just Left Chicago, 5 guitar picks for Waiting for the Bus. Okay, I give that a 5. It's a 5.
Cinco.
Okay, cinco. And then Jesus Just Left Chicago. Again, you got the kind of the humor element, right? But also, you know, I think these guys are legitimately, could be called a gospel song. You know, I think they're legitimately, this is, you know, Dusty shouting, you know, take me with you, Jesus. You know, it's like a spiritual gospel song. And I don't think they mean it in a disrespectful way, right? It's just a blues tune with the greasiest guitar solo ever. That dissonant little, I don't even know how he does it. It's awesome. It's just a brilliant song, just all the way around. It's not, you know, it's funny. You ever have the AC/DC album, Dirty Deeds? I don't know. Okay. So remember that song, Ride On? I'm gonna ride on.
The slow, right? Bluesy slow.
Yeah. And the music. See, I was familiar with that. And I can remember when I heard Jesus Just Left Chicago, I'm like, well, this is just Ride On by AC/DC, because it's that same chord progression, right? So it's a basic kind of slow blues progression, but just the gnarliest guitar tone and gnarliest solo. 5 guitar picks all the way. 5 guitar picks way up. Yeah.
One thing I want to quickly say is I remember reading an article about the first album and how was at Robin Hood Studios, I believe, in
Yeah.
Texas.
Uh-huh.
And Ham, the producer, was there. And I think the engineer was like, I'm not getting the sound I want to get, you know. How about we double some guitar tracks? And Billy was like, no overdubs.
Wow.
But then he was convinced. He got talked into doing that and adding kind of a second guitar track,
Right.
maybe different sound, or maybe even like, you know, whatever, changing it up. And now that I know that, and I listen back to like this album and all their other albums, if you really, with headphones, man, one guitar might be raunchier and more distorted.
Yep.
In the left channel, and then the right, it's there, but it's not that distorted, or it's doing different things.
Yeah, and
very intricate, but really cool layering going on.
It's funny you said that, because I was thinking the same thing. Is it's very it's not, they complement, so usually it's not dramatically different, and that's what you got to listen. So you hear it on Waiting for the Bus, for instance. There's at least 2 guitars in there, and I would say overdubbing now is like, even on Eliminator, Give Me All Your Lovin's a perfect example. You can distinctly hear 2 or 3 different guitars doing subtly different things. So yeah, there's a lot of that going on, and he's a master at that. It's great.
Yeah. 5 picks.
5 picks for sure. Okay, next up we have, is that Beer Drink? Yeah, Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers.
Badass.
It's just remade by Motorhead, by the way.
Is that right?
Oh yeah, and you can find live recordings of Van Halen playing this song too, which is pretty.
I've heard that. I've heard that.
Pretty awesome. Billy Gibbons, Eddie was a big fan of Billy Gibbons. Yeah, really liked him. Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers, again, the lyrics, I still can't understand all of what they say in the song, but I know it's cool.
Yeah. I like the call and response kind of thing.
Exactly. Yes.
And Dusty's voice in this is so great.
Here's the thing.
I think
Dusty's the way better singer of the two. When he sings, he can get way up high. He's got more range, but it's just not ZZ Top without Billy. I mean, there's some, Tush is Dusty, right? There's some exceptions, but when you think of ZZ Top, you think of Billy, even though Dusty's a phenomenal singer, you know. And yeah, the call and response is awesome. And I think this is the first time. No, that's not true, because Dusty's singing kind of a harmony part on Waiting for the Bus. I was going to say this might be the first time we really hear Dusty sing, but it's not, because he's on there. But yeah, Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers, awesome song, awesome solo. I love the stops in this song where they do they do the little thing. There's stops. Oh, it's just, everything is so tight throughout the whole album. I mean, we're going to be redundant talking about all of these songs, but
yeah,
five picks for Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers from me. Now let me talk about, what about you? Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers, that's a 5 picker, right? Would you say that's 5 picks?
Yes, that's definitely a cinco.
So we're in agreement. We've given it cinco for all of them so far, right? Did you have anything else on Beer Drinkers you wanted to mention?
I just love the rhythm of the, you know, it's so driving, and
yeah. And again, to your point, 2 guitars. You can listen to the 2 guitars.
Oh yeah,
slightly different. Yeah.
There's even one I think it's in the right, that's almost chimey.
Yeah.
There's barely much gain on it at all.
Yep.
And it's and I was. Another thing with the drums, I'm just listening to it again here. Frank's just like, you know, and Billy
it's really heavy. It's a
compliment
really
each
heavy
other.
sound. Yeah, it's very good. I have to talk about track 4, Master Sparks.
One of the greatest backstories ever.
I think this is the coolest song ever written. I really do. It is just, if you were going to come up, this is why I talk about the cartoon characters, right? This is just the craziest song, the craziest story. Is it true? Is it a true story?
Apparently it's true.
So tell us the story
At this point, it would be kind of lame for it not to be, but
Right.
like meaning like he would have corrected himself. I would have thought
Exactly
along the way, or
and I don't want to be a spoiler because it took me years to actually pay attention to the lyrics and know what was going on. But do you want to share the story or do you want me to?
Well, I don't mind because I actually just recently learned about it. But you sound like such a fan, and I feel like you should do it.
Well,
I love it.
All I will
more
say,
now,
and you flesh it out if I miss something, because maybe I'm missing something here. But the story of Master Sparks, high class Slim came rolling in down from the county line. It's a story of a guy, and I don't know if it's first person. I don't know if this happened to Billy. I don't know, but high class Slim comes rolling down, and in the back of his truck, he's got this big iron ball that he made, a big cage. And he wants someone to get inside the cage. So
it has an airplane seat inside.
Yeah, it has this airplane seat inside, and they want to push this cage off a moving truck, right? Sounds like a good thing to do. Why not? I had some friends who thought it would be a good idea to pull each other behind their truck in a fishing boat. I mean, literally the boat sitting down on the pavement with spark. That didn't turn out well. But that's what the story is about, is they come in and convince this guy to get inside this steel cage. And, we were out in the sticks on Highway 6. I can't remember all the words, but the speed was just about right. So
60 miles an hour or something.
Yeah, I was too, and out I flew like a stick of rolling dynamite, right? So you just envision a guy sitting inside this steel cage, rolling down the highway at 60 miles an hour with sparks flying all over, hence the name Master Sparks.
I thought, wasn't it Billy in the chair?
Well, that's what I've heard.
He survived, so they called him the Master.
Master of I don't know, and I don't know if it's true. That's, again, tall tales, but it is the coolest song ever. And what is that whistly sound? The whole song of, ooh, it's like, I try to figure out the whole vibe of that song, and I don't know what is making that kind of the sound I'm talking about?
During the whole song, or just a chorus?
Like during the verse, there's kind of a hollow, whistly, whiny sound that it sounds like more than just coming from the guitar.
So during the dun dun dun,
once the singing starts.
Yes, I got it. Yes,
yeah.
I actually have that down as a note.
Yeah, what?
I feel like it's a slide.
Okay,
it's got some kind of obviously funky or just cool reverb with some EQing going on.
But it's kind of a haunting little and I don't know that this is a song they've done live. I've never seen a live version. But this is my favorite ZZ Top song of all time, and I think maybe the coolest song of all time. It's just cool. It's a cool song.
So cool.
Yeah, and
I think the character in the song, I think he dies at the end.
That's what I'm thinking. Is I found that the Master of Sparks is God. The total spoiler. Okay, we've just spoiled it for everyone. But he learns at the end that the Master of Sparks is God, and then the song ends. Then it's over.
Oh, God!
I thought that's what he said.
Oh,
Master of Sparks.
I thought he died.
But what I meant is, either way, if it's either Master of Sparks is gone, is that what you thought it said?
Mm-hmm.
At the end, the Master Sparks, because I've heard it both ways. Either way, to me, it sounds like he died at the end. Okay, either it's the Master of Sparks is gone, okay, or the Master of Sparks is God, because I'm standing in front of him.
Right.
So either way, it sounds like the character dies at the end. But anyways, you got to listen to it. It's a great song.
I think as a supplement to the classic Guitar Rock podcast, is we can meet up somewhere after seeing ZZ Top in the desert of Nevada in Vegas, and let's get some apparatus and a pickup truck, and I'll volunteer.
Okay, awesome. You can be the master.
And if I survive, you could go next if you want.
Okay.
And we'll record it.
It's awesome.
And it'll be our first video podcast on Spotify.
Perfect. Maybe we could do it live. Yeah, you could be in the chair,
Yes.
mic'd up. Oh, I like that.
Twitch or whatever they do these days, these
great.
kids.
That would be awesome. Okay, now if I could give it 10 picks, I would. It's a great, great song. And then the next one, and again, this is a great song, but I gotta say, if there was a song that I wasn't gonna give 5 stars, there's this one and one other, but I still got to give this like 4.9. Hot, Blue, and Righteous, another slow blues.
Kind of a waltz, yeah.
And a waltz, yeah. And the
6/8 time.
The singing is great. Okay, that's the harmonies there. You get them both singing, very soulful.
I think the title alone, Hot, Blue, and Righteous.
Righteous, yeah. It's a great song. And the only reason I would give it a 4.9 is on any other album, I'd probably give it 5, but just in comparison to how solid everything else is, I got to delineate somehow. That's why I give it a 4.9, but still an excellent song. What do you think?
I agree with you. I like contrasts.
Yeah.
So for me, when I hear Billy's voice in this, I think, wow, he's pretty versatile,
very soulful. Yeah. It's
to sing this, even though he's got this sort of like raspy, deep kind of like just really unique sound, he can pull this off, which for that alone, I thought it was worth keeping it a 5.
But it's a pretty song, right? When you hear it, it's pretty. The guitar playing is pretty. It's a blues song, but a beautiful blues song, and it's a great song. You can give it 5. You can give it 5. I'm a bigger jerk than you are. That's why I'm giving it a 4.9.
No. Come on. Now.
Okay, now we move to side 2, and this for the longest time was my favorite song on the album. Master of Sparks pushed it out of place once I kind of figured out the story of Master Sparks. But the first track on side 2 is Move Me On Down the Line, which is a major pentatonic. It has more of a country-ish feel.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the first things I learned. It's a little drony. You go from a B chord to an E chord, but you keep holding the B note on the 6th string, so it gets kind of a drony B sound. Just a great song. The great slide playing. Billy's got great slide playing throughout, but this is the song to me that's kind of the slide masterpiece on the album. But just very up tempo. Major, you hear him, major pentatonic solo versus his normal minor pentatonic solo.
Yes,
excellent song.
Great little riff. There's a little riff in there before the chorus. I think.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da.
Yep. And and it's a good one. And then the little slide figure, you can play it without a slide, but it sounds better with the slide, under the verse is really cool. It's just really, really cool. 5 picks for Move Me On Down the Line. And to me, are you okay with that? You give it 5? You give me?
I'm going to go 4.5.
Okay. All right.
I don't know.
That's all right. No, that's good. But our next track, for some reason, Precious and Grace is the cousin to Master of Sparks.
I had that down too.
It's another story song out in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
Different kind of sparks flying.
You're in a vehicle.
In a vehicle, right? Precious and Grace are 2 lady friends.
Hitchhikers.
Yeah. So this is another Texas tall tale. Again, is it true? I don't know. But it's this solo, it's slide, and it's got this. It's almost like when you think of the old dobro or National Steel guitars, it's got a real slinky, twangy, rattly, like it's about to fall apart vibe going on that just sounds really good. And again, these are just beefy guitar licks, you know. Oh, it's a great song. Yeah.
I read that besides Hendrix, Allman Brothers was a band that I think it was the Moving Sidewalks opened for. And Billy was, really taken back by Dwayne.
Right. I bet.
One of the things I read was that he decided to like play less notes and play more tastier notes.
Okay. Good lesson.
According to, someone.
And you know what?
And then this slide in this song kind of reminds me a little of the Dwayne thing.
I can totally see that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think if you were going to sum up Billy's style, it would be, I mean, he's not known for playing fast licks, really. It would be just what you said. I'm going to play less notes and just play notes that count, right? And I think that's what he does,
Yes.
That's what he does.
Almost better than anybody.
Yeah. And I'm kind of moving through these last ones kind of quick. I got to get my son off the bus.
Oh, really quick, and then we'll go. The drums in this Precious and Grace, I love.
Oh, phenomenal.
I love the kick. There's a pattern. The kick drum rhythm is great.
Yeah. Yeah. You're much better at listening to drums than I am. Because I will, hear the drums, but I'm usually listening to other things. So I appreciate your picking those up on the drums. So
yes,
Precious and Grace, 5. That's a 5er to me. And then Lagrange, okay, it's a 5. It's a masterpiece. Not my favorite on the album, but clearly that's the one that has had the biggest impact from the album, I think.
Sure.
To the point that, I mean, people that aren't rock fans at all know Lagrange, but it's just, again, we talked about the pinch harmonics. You said something you wanted to say when we were talking about Gibsons or Strats. Was it this song
I do believe this was on a Strat.
Interesting.
And you can kind of tell in the beginning when his volumes rolled back.
It's got a slinkier sound than you're used to hearing with the Les Paul, for sure. And when you hear the live versions, it sounds a lot different because he's playing those on a Les Paul. I think you're right. That makes total sense. Yeah.
Rolling Stones, Exile on Main Street, 1972. You know the album?
I'm familiar with the album. Yeah.
There's a song called Shake Your Hips.
Okay.
Put that on really quickly.
I will. Because I'm not familiar with that. I'll do that. Okay, great.
It is sort of this song.
Interesting. Okay.
If you want to take a quick gander,
I will check it out for sure. Okay.
And also, of course, John Lee Hooker.
Yeah, that's a John Lee Hooker song, and this and
Boogie Chillin'.
Boogie Chillin', and I've heard Billy, he gives John Lee Hooker credit for this intro part of Lagrange for sure. So interesting.
Maybe they both kind of,
Yeah. Okay, 5 picks for Lagrange. I think you're on 5. Now, Chic. I love Chic. Now, Chic has a different tone because this is a clean, very funky guitar.
Yeah.
But I love it. It's a kind of minimalist, there's not a lot of instrumentation, just a funky and funny lyrics, the typical
great lyrics,
cool guy lyrics, again, it's like The Man with No Name in the Clint Eastwood movies, right? It's a continuing, I picture continuation. These songs are all like the same dude, in the songs. It's cool. I give this a 5. It's a 5 to me.
I love it. That's fantastic.
You think it's a 5 too?
The lyrics are great.
Lyrics are awesome.
Go print out the lyrics or go view the lyrics online. They're just awesome.
It's great. And then the last song is the gospel song, right? Have You Heard? And I would, to be honest, I was surprised that this was actually written by Hill and Gibbons. I assumed this was actually an old spiritual that they did, but it isn't. It's one they wrote, but it sounds like a gospel song you'd hear in a church somewhere. Again, great song, great slide playing on this one too.
Yeah, I had that
Great
down as
slide
well.
playing. But just very boom. The bass is very boom, boom. But it works. It's a great tune. Great slide, and I think it's a good closing track. It's a good track to end the song on.
It
And
sort of fades out into the sunset.
it does. Yeah, it's a great song and brings to close a great album. I give it 4.99 stars. And again, only to differentiate. So Hot Blue and Righteous, Have You Heard, are great songs. And the only reason I give them slightly lower is I think compared to the other songs, I gotta have some type of differentiation between, because the other songs are so awesome that I have to, do something there.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I'll go with 4.5.
4.5. Okay, great. So I think it's pretty clear that you and I both love this album. We both think it's, would you say it's in your top 5 or top 10?
Definitely top 10.
Okay. Yeah. It's in my top 5. And it's a great album. I think everyone should own it. And I think, it shows that Billy Gibbons is, I mean, he's a master. He's just awesome.
I mean, he's like an idol of mine for sure. I always try to play his stuff and I get tripped up. I'm like, wait, it doesn't sound that difficult. And it's the way he does it, which is always what I say.
It's the magic. There's something about the way he does it. And I love what you said earlier about, I don't want to play as many notes. I want to play them. However you said it, that quote you shared, that's exactly what it is. And I think that kind of sums up his style. So
can I say something else about the album really quick?
Please do.
I heard that in the 80s, or maybe when CDs came out, the original mix was not distributed on CD.
Yeah.
It wasn't the released album for like 20 years.
Right.
And apparently the drums were really different. So people were complaining about it. Yeah. So they re-released a remastered version.
I had what they called the ZZ Top 6-pack.
Okay.
Which was their first 6 albums. So I think it took you up through El Loco. I can't remember. It left, but it was 6 ZZ Top albums, and they completely what they did is they made the drums sound like the Eliminator drums.
Yeah. No.
And yeah, people were pissed off, rightly so. And it was funny because for so many years, that's how I listened to the earlier albums. Not this one, because I always had this one on vinyl, but like first album, the Rio Grande Mud, the only thing I'd heard it was on my ZZ Top 6-pack with the modern drums. And I didn't even know they'd done that. Only I thought, those drums sound awful modern for 1971. Well, it's because they'd gone in and they'd done some things and added some delay and weird things. And so when they actually reissued the new ones, and I went and bought on CD the newer versions, it was quite a difference. So that was dumb.
You get 3 live tracks, right?
You get 3 live tracks. You get Waiting for the Bus, Jesus Just Left Chicago, and Lagrange live. And it's awesome. I still like to pull out the vinyl because I like to hear the crackle, but It's great. Jeff, this has been a blast. Thank you for joining me this week.
My pleasure.
And it's been awesome. Thank you for listening. You can email us, classicguitarrock@mail.com. If you'd like to be a sponsor, let us know. It could be great. You'll be surprised at how affordable it is to be a sponsor on the Classic Guitar Rock podcast. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Classic Guitar Rock podcast.
Adios.